So to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, where Donald Trump is going to be greeting the returning bodies being repatriated from Kuwait, those that were killed last Sunday. 6 members of the Army Reserve who worked in logistics and kept troops supplied with food and equipment. They died on Sunday when a drone hit a command center in Port Shuaibah in Kuwait. That's one day after the US and Israel launched its military campaign against Iran. You can see the line of dignitaries observing as the first body is brought out. Donald Trump joined by the First Lady, Melania Trump, and members of the cabinet. He's done this before. He's greeted returning bodies before, but not from wars that he launched. And now he is face to face with the deadly consequences of a war that he triggered. Mr. Trump would speak about his visits in his first term as reminders of what he described as a tragic futility of the endless wars he had been elected to stop. But as I say, now here he is observing as the coffins are brought back from Kuwait ahead of funerals that are going to be taking place. Let's bring in Heidi Jo Castro, who's at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. So Heidi, this is obviously a very solemn moment, but not a good one in terms of optics for Donald Trump.
Certainly not. And you are seeing in this long line of dignitaries, not only Trump, but also the First Lady, the Vice President, the Second Lady, and then just the who's who of the Trump administration's cabinet. Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary. We have the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs. We even have the U.S. Attorney General and Steve Witkoff, the Special Envoy to the Mideast, all turning out for this really milestone in this war against Iran. In just a week's time now, 6 U.S. service members, their remains transferred from Kuwait, where they were struck, the Pentagon says, by Iranian drone. And those somber moments where we saw those coffins being removed from the aircraft, transferred by specialized service member team, and then onto the mortuary here at Dover Air Force Base. You're right, this is not the first time that Trump has attended this type of dignified transfer, but it is the first time where it's soldiers who died under his watch from a conflict that he launched. And this is a very precarious moment for his administration, given the unpopularity of this conflict with the American public. In national polls taken even before these 6 American casualties were announced, even then, only 1 in 4 Americans supported Trump taking this decision to strike Iran. And so it is these images where we see grieving families and we see the coffins of U.S. soldiers returning to American soil that could be the most damaging to Trump as he's trying to sell this campaign to the American public.
Okay, and what of the American public, Heidi, as we watch these solemn events? How do they view the American war in Iran?
Right now, top of mind for the general American public is still the economy, and that is still the issue that's really propelling them towards the next congressional elections in November. As far as the war in Iran, yes, people are talking about it, but up to this point where we haven't seen the arrival of American remains as a result of this war until this moment. And so this could be a turning point. But of course, like I said, according to those polls, the vast majority of Americans do not agree with this war. More than 57% say that Trump is too eager to use U.S. military force abroad. And there's deep skepticism about what the aims of this war are and just how long it may last. We've heard Trump giving shifting explanations, saying that it could be a few weeks. And then we saw him posting, on social media that it could be open-ended, that the U.S. could go on forever. And it is that word, forever, war, which the U.S. electorate and namely his supporters, the MAGA base, have been so opposed to, and which President Trump, when candidate, campaigned against, promising he would not entangle the U.S. in more protracted military conflicts abroad. And we're seeing the ramifications of that with these first 6 U.S. service members killed in action in Kuwait as a result of this war with Iran.
So, Heidi, I mean, what happens next is the question. I mean, they say, as we've just been mentioning, that they're going to be ramping up their bombings. Are we seeing any support for that? I mean, do we have any figures on how this war is being supported or otherwise in the U.S.?
That's right. We're still waiting on the latest polling because those that were conducted about a week ago when this war was first launched already showed that Americans were deeply skeptical. And we're still waiting to see whether that opinion has shifted. But we have seen, just some anecdotes about the great skepticism of how the U.S. is conducting this war. Even the husband of one of these slain service members, a mother of 2 who was killed in Kuwait, telling reporters that his wife had been moved to a makeshift office, he described, in anticipation of these strikes before they were launched by Donald Trump. And he said that this was not a secure location, that it was like a shipping container, that in fact that the military had moved his wife and other service members there as a security measure prior to these strikes. The Pentagon has pushed back on this, calling the place that was attacked by the Iranian drone as a secure facility with tall walls in defense. Obviously, that did not work to protect these 6 lives of American service members, and there are still many questions to be answered. That incident's still under investigation, but other outstanding questions that the American public want to know, like how much more of a price U.S. soldiers are expected to pay for this, how long it will last, and with Trump being very practical, calling these slain soldiers heroes, but also warning the U.S. that he said there likely will be more before this conflict is over.
The thing is, and one of the big questions that people are asking is, what's it all for? I mean, the reasons we've had from Donald Trump as to why he started this war, there have been 9 different reasons in the last week or thereabouts.
Absolutely, and that is what has really even his MAGA base, Trump's MAGA base, concerned about it. We've heard shifting explanations with Trump immediately after announcing the first strikes, calling on the Iranian people to rise up. He said that this was their moment to determine their own future. But then after that, we heard the administration pull back, saying that this was more about decimating the nuclear program of Iran and its support of proxy militias. So there has been just varying explanations, and there's also been a lack of direction, as the U.S. hasn't even really said who it wishes to see become the new leader of Iran, and whether regime change is even possible has been widely greeted with skepticism widely from experts, particularly with Trump even saying that there's not many people left among current Iranian leaders who are still alive after these continued strikes.
I mean, Heidi, we were looking at these images of these 6 American soldiers being loaded up in vans and presumably, as you were reporting earlier, being taken to a morgue. This is also coming against this backdrop of perhaps Donald Trump not really knowing what he wants here. He wants unconditional surrender. And that's what he was saying earlier. They dialed it back a little bit, but still, how can you have unconditional surrender if you don't have boots on the ground?
That's right, and that's the thing here. Trump has, in the past, said he would not send more U.S. troops overseas on the ground in invasions. He campaigned against, the invasion of Iraq, of Afghanistan, and the wars that lasted decades as a result. But he has not ruled out putting U.S. boots on the ground here in Iran, and that is a key detail here. Democrats who were briefed in Congress by the Department of Defense's secretary have reached the conclusion, they said to reporters, that potentially U.S. boots on the ground is in the future plans, though it has not been publicly announced. And if that were to take place, the U.S. public would likely be very opposed. They've told pollsters time and time again that they would oppose putting more American lives on the line directly by entering ground battles in Iran or elsewhere, and seeing these images of coffins being removed from airplanes after those 6 U.S. Army reservists were killed in Kuwait by an Iranian drone. These images, these tragedies, as the American public sees it, are the most damaging to any sort of campaign that Trump is trying to conduct to the American public to get behind his war that they are deeply skeptical of at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're still looking at these images of these cases containing the remains of those 6 U.S. servicemen who were killed. And they're, of course, returning now to the United States at Dover Air Force Base, where Heidi is at the moment. Now, Heidi, I mean, Donald Trump has really been lauding the success of his armed forces in particular, but we're not hearing much about the end goals. We're going back to that, aren't we, here once more?
Absolutely. And he's really leaning into, the emotions behind today's somber events. He called these service members heroes, prior to coming here from Florida. He notably left those Latin American leaders standing around waiting for him in Florida. There's a summit that he was going to spend his day at, but he notably left those leaders behind in order to choose to be with the families of the fallen instead here in Dover. He will return to Florida shortly, but he's really trying to paint this picture and standing with his vice president, the secretaries that are with him, as well as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to show the American public just how seriously the administration is taking this moment. It's really a recasting, something that Donald Trump thinks himself very good at in trying to shape public opinion, shape the news cycle. But in the broader context, the American public has been pretty skeptical of Trump's support of the military, starting from, when he was a young man and received 5 draft deferments to avoid serving in the Vietnam War. Then in his first term, criticizing the Gold Star, the family of a Gold Star lieutenant who was killed, and then reportedly calling slain U.S. service members losers. All of that he's trying to now reframe. In the second term, he has tried to take credit for, he said, rebuilding the U.S. military and calling them heroes, and now standing with those families as they receive their lost loved ones.